Welcome in. This is the Friday, June 7, 2024 Market Plus. Our installment this week is with Elaine Kub back with us.
Good to be here.
You drove through some areas. What's the windshield tour say from South Dakota to central Iowa?
Yeah, still getting things finished up north. Central Iowa, things look like it was a late spring here too. You usually expect things to be knee high by the 4th of June in Iowa, and they weren't all, but I'm sure it'll catch up.
It has, and that is the theme of several questions, including our leadoff question here from Mitchell in Iowa, who wants to know, we have so much excess rain and soggy conditions. The saying is rain makes grain, but drown out spots and wet spots make nothing. How are we expected to have a trendline yield?
Well, I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to. That saying that we always say. But yeah, actually, I mean, the way that it works is if you're missing the little pieces of drown out spots and the edges of fields and so forth, is truly the stuff that does get planted makes up for it with incredible yields because it had no shortage of moisture. And historically, that has almost always been true, 2019 being a notable exception. But you know, the system or the nationwide geographical spread of where we grow crops in this country is able to absorb, some losses in the Dakotas where that pretty frequently happens that you miss some potholes.
I think right now the figure is Minnesota and North Dakota still have 4 million acres to plant of soybeans. So is that
it's June 7th.
Okay, but is that a significant number?
Yes.
When it's all said.
If this was June 16th, yes. But we still got, they got time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time is still, and that is what there was some said online about that. But let's talk about Russia. They have a weather issue too. This is Neil in Ohio who wants to know, with the lower Russian wheat supply and if it leads to a low amount of Russian wheat available for export, will the U.S. wheat market lead the corn and soybean market much higher?
Well, I really like the reminder that, yes, the U.S. wheat market will benefit. I mean, eventually someone will come and buy our wheat to make up for those losses from Russia, which will be nice. But whether or not it would lead the other grains or the oilseeds higher, not at this price ratio. There is a price ratio at which feed wheat, starts being pulled out of the feed grains market and then creates more scarcity for the feed grains market for corn, but we're not there yet.
How big of a deal can the Russian story get? How much more serious?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, right, like the Russian supply of grain to that hemisphere of the globe is the dominant supplier in that part of the world. So I guess watch how it develops. I mean, at this point, we don't know. But what is it, 10 million metric tons at this point is the thinking?
That's what I've seen, yes.
Yeah, that's not insurmountable. But if it gets worse, I mean, there's a lot of growing season left for them to get through.
I think I asked during the TV show about, why did corn not necessarily follow wheat? You explained it there, you just explained it again. But is this a year where they're really never corn, soybeans, wheat going to be tied together like sometimes they can be?
Yeah, they do seem to be on pretty different paths. And that's largely because corn has become such a sort of insulated domestic market lately. That could change. That could change. So at this point, yes, they seem to be trading independently, but it could change.
Okay.
That's the best I can say.
Well,
sorry.
I'd asked for a signal, but I think I've hit you with that 6 questions. So, but I want to go Andy in Iowa, who's asking about wheat, but he wants to know, would it be a wise time to start considering locking in some protection on 25 wheat?
Well, as I mentioned on the main show, I'm actually not a seller of wheat right now, but I mean, that's not great risk management advice, but I'm a little bullish on wheat. However, when you see a price for wheat that you like, and yes, 2025 or even 26 or 27 will be pulled along with the 24 futures just because that's the way the futures tend to work, then those are great opportunities to be selling. If you see a good price that's motivated by something that's happening to folks halfway around the world and not happening to your own production, and you're confident that you'll have something to sell in 25, 26, 27, yes, hit those prices hard. Not hard, but hit them slightly.
There's going to be a theme here now from Elaine, and this next question helps get her started. Gary in Wisconsin wants to know, with most of the crop in with good moisture conditions headed into summer, does a farmer need to start selling at or below production costs? The key word in this, sell.
Yes. You know, Paul, I'm so happy. A lot of times I come on this show and it kind of sounds like you don't really have much to say, right? Like the markets aren't doing much or they're at prices that aren't very compelling. And I understand Gary's concern that these prices may not seem very compelling if you have very high cost of production and they're not super profitable. But this time on June 7th, in June of 2024, I mean, this is the time when there really is important recommendations to be made to be selling, because seasonally, if you have a market in a state of normal abundance, which is the broad expectation for 2024, unless something really strange happens this summer, stranger than last summer's drought in Iowa, which didn't even make the markets go up really, unless something strange happens, we're looking at a large crop, abundant supplies in 2024, which means your best opportunities are to sell before harvest, to do pre-harvest hedging in the spring and summer. And the time of year when you're most likely to see the annual high for new crop corn specifically, and for soybeans too, is mid-June. So Phil in Canada, you know, he always likes to ask that or to bring that up. And so I want to make that reminder again here. This is the time. This is the time.
He had asked last week, it was I was planning to sell on like June 18th or something like that. But that was coming off of a week where things had risen. I guess I'm going to ask yet again, but just a slightly different seasonality. Sell between Mother's Day and Father's Day because there's usually a rally at that point. You're saying this is a year that holds up?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it may have already happened, as I mentioned, like in the middle of May. We may have, it may not, the very high may not be in June. It may have been in May. Nevertheless, if you missed that one, this is still, this is still the time.
Do you is there any movement in a basis issue that can cause you to sell or change your philosophy on this?
This is a very, very good question, Paul, because basis for the new crop is funky right now. And it's because, in my understanding or my analysis of it, it's because the rail markets have gotten pretty expensive when you're looking out through the calendar year of 2024. And therefore, it looks to me, and this is just kind of eyeballing it, but I'd say most new crop basis bids right now look about 10 cents weaker than they normally would be. So, and there's no real expectation that that would get any better. I can't think of a reason right now that new crop basis would necessarily improve. So the question in my mind, honestly, and I don't really have a great recommendation, is whether you should just be selling them outright or doing a hedge to arrive and hope that basis would improve. And I think that's kind of a gamble. And maybe get a sense of what your local market, if your local market is rail-based, you know, I don't see a lot of hope. If your local market is more processor-based, then yeah, maybe a hedge to arrive is a better idea.
So that's certainly worth a phone call,
yes,
conversation, and absolutely, and anybody who's in that situation, they know what's better.
Yeah, talk to your merchandisers,
okay.
yeah.
Last thing on grain is, we talk about weather, not really, it's going to take more. But usually, I guess I want to ask, how much more? I mean, is there a relative thing? Sean Hackett last week just could not say it enough. He just sees July getting hot.
Okay.
Is it just kind of that's the way you feel about it? Okay, just okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in July.
Yeah.
Sure. But I remind you, again, like, you remember last summer in Iowa, the #1 corn growing state in the nation, had a big red drought all summer, right during the growing season, and yet prices did not necessarily respond in the way that you would expect them to. So we can grow a crop here pretty reliably.
Yeah. What about those trying to grow cotton?
Yeah, cotton, conditions-wise, actually, the crop looks pretty good. I think it's better than its 5-year average. So nothing really much to complain about there, but I'm a little bullish about cotton just in sort of an overall economy sense, and it goes back to the good jobs report and the cuts in interest rates from Canada and from the European Union. Like, the United States hasn't started cutting interest rates yet, but there's enough reason to think that there could be bullishness in actual demand for stuff globally that I wouldn't be in a big hurry to be selling cotton, personally.
This dollar story, we referred to it a couple of times. Stock market keeps performing.
Yeah.
Jobs report, but there were these layoffs at Deere & Company. There were layoffs at a couple of other places. There's the outlook for office space. There's there's these other little economic factors. Does that play into your answer at all?
I mean, I haven't studied that enough to tell you, what part of that is just the normal churn that will happen, or are these signs of something to be more concerned about? I don't have a good sense for you there, Paul.
What's the best sense you have? The best advice I want you to say one more time before we go. What four-letter word do you want to say to us?
Sell. When in doubt, and this is truly my mantra for the grain markets for all time. If anybody ever asks me advice, I will say, when in doubt, sell some grain. When in doubt, sell some grain.
No doubt that it was good to see you again, Elaine.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Elaine Kub, everybody. Next week, we are going to look at the story of making a profit taking vegetables from local gardens to local forks, and we'll have the commodity market analysis with Mark Gold. Thank you so very much for joining us, and have a great week.